1. It finally happened. I confronted my upstairs neighbours today. Well, not that I wanted to, but I knocked on the ceiling enough times that she got angry and came down to knock on my door to ask me what my problem was. So I told her. Now, I'll admit I handled the situation very poorly because I wasn't ready for it. I think I was too worked up, and I'm not super proud of myself for letting my anger prevail. I intend to apologize to her tomorrow for overreacting, but I still want to vent it out here. Okay, so, about loud footsteps. I personally don't get it. When I walk, I'm very aware that there are neighbours below me, so I try not to make too much noise when I walk, especially if it's early in the morning or late at night. But some people seem to not be aware or not care at all. And the more I think about it, the more I think that's what makes it so infuriating. It's this idea that the neighbour doesn't care about you at all that makes them appear like really bad people in your head. And I mean, maybe that's true. Or maybe they don't realize how loud and annoying their footsteps sound. Maybe they've never had downstairs neighbours before, or maybe they've never experienced loud footsteps coming from upstairs neighbours. I consider myself pretty tolerant when it comes to noise. Music, singing, and dancing doesn't bother me at all. But loud footsteps really drive me crazy. I'm sure you can relate if you've had it happen. There's just something about constant loud footsteps that makes it intolerable. From the little I've read, there's not much that can be done other than getting a white noise machine. Also, what I'm slowly realizing is that it's a pointless battle that can't possibly end with the landlord siding with me. From the landlord's perspective, I probably look like the crazy one, right? I mean, complaining about footsteps. That's not a crime. Everyone has to walk. It's bound to make some noise, right? It's not even at unreasonable times either. I think there's probably a difference between stomping at 3 a.m. and 8 p.m. At least here in Canada, there are bylaws that say you shouldn't make unreasonable noise between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m., but that's not when my neighbours walk, thankfully. They go to sleep around 10:30 p.m., so they stomp during the day. However, it's very confusing to me because they're not exercising, they're just walking, sometimes with shoes on, back and forth, back and forth. And I just don't understand why you need to walk that much in your own house. Imagine a model walking confidently on the catwalk, except instead of being thin, she's an obese elephant. And instead of wearing high heels, she wears 5-ton cyber demon boots. That's what it sounds like. An obese cyber elephant demon pretending to be a fashion model. But to be clear, she's not actually fat, so I'm not mocking her weight. In fact, she's quite thin, which makes it even more confusing. How can such a small body make so much noise? I don't understand. Anyway, sorry, I just needed to vent and talk about this. Has anyone had success getting this resolved in a peaceful, friendly manner? Also, because I already failed at talking to my neighbour in a respectful, calm manner, any suggestions about how I should proceed? I really want to apologize to her for getting too worked up over footsteps, but I also don't want to make it sound like they didn't do anything wrong. But obviously, I don't want to make things worse. I'm pretty bad at this. Hellfreezer's note. It sounds like the neighbours are probably not doing anything deliberate here. They're not trying to antagonize you, although they might now. What I would suggest is talk to your other neighbours, the people across the hall, anyone else you might know in the building. Ask what the noises from the people above them sound like. This might just be an insulation issue. That's not to say the landlord is going to do anything about it. I can almost guarantee they won't do anything about it. But at least then you know it's not just you. As far as apologizing to the neighbour, all I can suggest is you send them just a little gift, something harmless that most people wouldn't be offended by, with a note saying, hey, look, the noise is a bit of a problem for me, but I'm sorry that I overreacted. Hopefully we can chat and figure out a solution to it. I know you're not doing it deliberately, but nonetheless, I do live below you, and it is affecting my peace of mind. Maybe they'll respond well to that, and maybe they won't, but hopefully there's some peaceful resolution here for you. It sounds like a very unpleasant experience to go through. The only other thing I could suggest as a possible stopgap measure is just get noise-cancelling headphones and enjoy listening to podcasts or something. At least for the hours when it's at its worst. 2. I've lived in my building for almost 20 years now. Majority of it I've lived on one floor, and in recent years moved to a different floor in the building. I've never had issues with my neighbors before, and being that I stick to myself and usually mind my business, I didn't expect any. As I was moving over to the new floor, I realized there would be literal garbage all on my side, right in front of the door, or immediate area. I'm talking someone ordered a sandwich from the deli, and threw everything but the sandwich right on the floor, and there is a garbage chute nearby. Initially, I'm like, well, no one lived in my apartment for some time, I'll just leave a sign on my door saying, hey, someone lives here now, please don't throw garbage here. Of course, it continued here and there. Why would I expect any decency from the people that put it there to begin with? My neighbors next to me would do weird things like open their door to literally stand there and look at people knocking on my door. Just leave their door cracked open once they heard someone knock on my door, and then look at them. For context, me and my neighbors share a wall. Our doors are right next to each other. We could run shoulders coming in. The people that would come to my door would be like, what's with your neighbors? And would tell me what they were doing, as if being nosy and intimidating. One time the neighbor told someone I was somewhere I wasn't, and told one of my siblings to check on me because I was always quiet. Just weirdo stuff. The neighbors at the time were slamming the door all the way till about 4 a.m. every day, morning to morning, so bad my door would shake, and you would hear it to the back room of my apartment. So much so it would wake my kid up. I left them a letter asking them to please stop because it was affecting us, and they did it even more. One time they woke me up at 3 a.m., and I knocked and told them, please stop. They literally woke me up. A guy that lives there said, okay, and slammed it closed. They had the police falsely called on me. I ended up letting them know, like they're using their door to harass me, and they went and told them some random nonsense. I ended up flipping out on the lady one day, yelling, not cursing, but I'm like, you have kids, and an elderly woman in there. If not be considerate for your neighbors, be considerate for your own family. And she just responded with nonsense like, everyone does it, don't talk to me, talk to management. Why do I need to talk to management? I'm telling you to stop the door and the garbage nonsense. Yes, they were the ones tossing the garbage. They went to complain to management that I was harassing them about slamming the door, so on paper, as they took the first step, I looked like the aggressor. At this time, I was putting up letters on my own door for my deliveries, and I see them get ripped off my door. Clearly it was them. A lot of weird things keep happening. Weird marks, literal ground dirt thrown in front of my door, etc. The audacity is when they ended up getting a camera before I did, which I find funny because I was the one getting harassed, but okay. I finally ended up getting a camera myself, and they were bothered. I caught their youngest daughter talking about how she was the one that ripped stuff off my door. Instead of correcting her, they silenced her. She'd stand in front of my door and use her daughter to run her mouth and talk into my camera, talking crap about me, throwing middle fingers in the works. Very provoking. She then got her son involved, and he would look into the camera as if to intimidate me, and then would get his homeboys whenever they'd come by to do the same thing. Call me a bitch, stick up their middle finger, and so on. Extended family would come by, but they too would join in. When I'd see her by herself, she wouldn't even have the balls to look me in the face, but her and her whole family and friends join in on harassing me, and when I'd ask, what's the problem? There's no problem. So then why the harassment? This has been going on for years now. I tried reaching out to management about it. The neighbors went in and brought up the first time they went to management, which at this point was about 7 years ago, and management tried to tell me something about that, and I'm like, how are you bitching about something they complained about 7 years ago? To me telling you they've been harassing me ever since to this day. They have a camera. Do they have me on there harassing them? I have them, though. I suffer from PTSD, so I have always made it my business to stay away from people and their nonsense. But I don't know how much more I can take. I feel like I'm being made to look like the problem. I've had them follow me on sites and harass me. I don't have problems with many people, so I can instantly tell where this is coming from. Also, when people would go into her home, you can tell alone how many people there are when they go in versus when they come back out. This lady talks so much nonsense about me to people to get them to react against me, and damn near none of them can say they see me often or see me at all. I feel like they harass me just enough to be able to avoid charges. It's consistent over time, but not exactly daily, so it's like they get away with it, in my opinion. I have many reasons for not leaving, so that's not an option, and I tried reaching to management because of them doing what they did. They have me down like the problem maker. Something's gotta give. It's like me and my kid versus a family of mostly adults, and extended to other people that don't even live here, etc. Hellfreezer's note, perhaps you could reach out to management again and ask as soon as another unit opens up elsewhere in the building if you could move there. It sounds like it might be the best solution for you at this point. 3. So my downstairs neighbor and I have had issues since a month after I moved in, so August 2023. My toilet leaked into his condo. We are both renting from individuals. He talked to my landlord when she was here because he heard her and the plumber working when I wasn't home. He then came over at 11 p.m. that same day when he heard me come home, his words. He was friendly and tried to connect because we're both gay, then the next morning left his number in my apartment door. This is where the weird behavior started. He texted me so many times in a row, and when I didn't reply he showed up texting me, "It's X, I'm at your door." I pretended to be asleep, and an hour later texted him saying it made me uncomfortable that he came up here, because we just met 12 hours ago, and I am a feminine person that lives by myself. He apologized, saying he had boundary issues and laughing it off. I told him to not do it again, and he said okay. The same thing happened the next day, but with phone calls, and I was working, so I said please don't call without asking first, and he went off, saying I caused him all these issues, cleaning up water and buying cleaning products, and that he wouldn't have bothered getting to know me if this wouldn't have happened, etc., etc. This was all within 48 hours of meeting him. I told him to not contact me again and blocked him. Good. Things were quiet for a while, but in February 2024, when my partner moved in, he started pounding on the ceiling. We didn't know that's what it was until we dropped something and heard it. I thought upstairs neighbors were doing construction. I was frustrated, but left it alone. Then one day we were too loud in the elevator past 11 p.m., and he came and pounded on the door extremely loudly and left, trying to scare us, basically. My next-door neighbors and my partner and I called the cops. He basically told them that we were antagonizing him, etc., etc. How is dropping things antagonizing? And the cops had to talk to him a second time because he started yelling at us through the ceiling. I understand that we were loud, but coming up to our home was extremely uncalled for. They basically told us to try to be quiet, but were dismissive about his aggressive behavior. I was in contact with another neighborhood dispute police officer, and I told her I understand there's been times we have been too loud, and I am truly sorry. But I can't help dropping stuff, or my cat's jumping off something and landing on the floor, or running the sweeper or playing my acoustic instrument. I'm a professional musician. Or listening to music or laughing or walking with shoes on, all examples of reasons he is pounded. Also, coming to someone's door to scare them is not acceptable. I don't want to walk on eggshells. They'd probably complain about that too. And I should be able to live my life. They wanted to do a mediation, but I thought he was moving out. Plus, I felt uncomfortable because he blamed everything on us after the last cops were dismissive. I wasn't sure how well it would go. He is clearly very unstable. He even at one point told the police he was going to start calling cops on us too, every time we drop something. My landlord informed him we renewed our lease, and unfortunately he decided to as well. Now we're dealing with pounding weekly. At this point, he's doing it to be petty because it doesn't matter if it's within sound ordinance or not. I have kept a log of all the times he's pounded, and at least 2 or 3 out of the times were before 11 p.m. We even contacted property management, and they said they couldn't do anything about it. They can, they're choosing not to. It's been so hard not to retaliate because I want to take the mature route and not cause any more issues, especially with having high anxiety. Also, we're in our 20s and know that inevitably we are going to lose credibility to an older, seemingly charming white man, even if I have documentation and video proof of the pounding. Is there any way I can file for harassment? Since it's been happening for over a year and I have multiple outlets of proof. I don't know his last name, unfortunately, only his first. but I know the police officer handling our case probably does. I just don't know what to do, and I don't want to be given the runaround again and again. Please help. Hellfreezer's note. If I were you, I'd look into the possibility of moving early. You don't want to break the lease, that will affect your credit score. However, speak to the landlord. Your landlord, it sounds like they've acted a touch inappropriately here. I'm not sure what the law is regarding this, but it seems like it's really none of your neighbor's business whether or not you renewed the lease, so why were they being told that? Is it the same landlord for both units? Is that what's happening here? Even then, it would be none of your neighbor's business. If it is the same landlord, or even if it isn't, anytime they're making noise and you gather proof, recording video evidence and such, send a copy of that information on to your landlord about what's happening. And possibly then speak with the support officer you mentioned previously, let them know what's going on as well. Perhaps working together you'll be able to get something done there. But I feel like the best thing for you and your partner might be moving to somewhere with quieter, more sane neighbours. I see this sort of thing happen time and time again. One neighbour gets a bug up their butt about the other one, then it doesn't matter what happens, they will find a way to complain, no matter what. And that person blaring their horn outside obviously agrees. I hope it works out with both of you, because everybody deserves to have peace in the place they're paying money to live in. The good news is you're both in your 20s. This is probably not going to be your forever home, so you won't have to put up with that silly man forever. 4. For a little context, my husband, 28, and myself, female, 27, purchased our home about 4 years ago. Well done. The next house to ours was a rental for a few years, but recently sold to a couple slightly younger than us, 25, 24, male and female respectively. My husband and I typically keep to ourselves when it comes to neighbours. However, when this couple moved in, him and the guy hit it off and were friends. They would talk about guy things and generally got along. There were a few times when we ran into the couple as we were coming and going, and the wife always has a sour look on her face, refused to make eye contact, and generally seemed uninterested in any kind of conversation. She let her husband do the talking and refused to even engage. On other occasions, when my husband would run into the husband a few times a week, and they would talk back and forth. Nothing crazy. A few months ago in November, the insanity started. The husband invited my husband and I over for his birthday get-together at their home. I'm not as social as my husband, and already had a strong feeling that this woman didn't like me, but went anyway. Let me preface, I don't know these people, and all interactions were extremely limited. As I was getting ready for this party, I was undecided on what I should wear, sundress or jeans and a t-shirt, and I stupidly asked my husband what he thought I should wear. He, of course, picked the sundress. We showed up to the party, and I quickly noticed that I was the only one in a dress and everyone else was in jeans. I didn't mind, but I sat in the corner for a while, petting their dogs while my husband socialized. The wife attempted to make small talk with me, but you could tell she was uninterested in having anything to do with me. I made small talk back, but it was clear we weren't going to be friends. Luckily, at one point, everyone started taking shots and they needed more shot glasses, so I offered to grab some from our house. I quickly ran home, changed into jeans, checked our dogs, and grabbed some shot glasses. When I came back, I was more comfortable. I ended up starting a conversation with the neighbor husband's mom and grandmother about the couple's upcoming wedding. We were all out in the backyard playing music and chatting. This is important later. Again, this convo was normal and I thought it was going well. After a few hours, we went home and I had a friend coming over that night. My friend and I were sitting on my back porch later that night, smoking flower and cigarettes, it's legal in my state, catching up. At this point, I hear the stepmother of the dude begin to run her mouth. They did have music playing, and between the music and the conversation I was having, I couldn't hear everything she was saying. But I heard enough to put together that she was saying something along the lines of, "She just wore that dress to try and seduce him, and then when she realized she couldn't, so she changed." I did let my friend know, but ultimately some people are just going to run their mouths. So I ignored it. As the night continued, this woman continued to talk crap about me to the point where she asked someone to turn the music up so they can't hear me. and then went on to complain about the smoke smell, saying, "I have to go inside, I just can't stand it anymore." I let this go, and let my husband know that I did hear them talking crap. After this incident, my husband did try to bring up the stepmom talking about me to the neighbor, and the response he got was, "Oh, don't swear, that's just how she is." My husband missed the part where she accused me of trying to sleep with the neighbor husband, but we clarified that in a later conversation. We ultimately chalked this situation up to somebody just not liking me and being immature. Unfortunate that this is coming from a 50-year-old woman, but it happens. It's important to know that I'm somebody who doesn't get together with their friends very often, but we do catch up over the phone. And because I'm a smoker, I typically have these conversations on my back porch. But I do try to be mindful of people around and try to keep volume down in an attempt to be respectful of other neighbors. That being said, I did fill my friends in on my meeting with the neighbors and weird vibes I got from the wife and the crap the dude's stepmom was saying. We laughed about it and how it wasn't a big deal, how sad and pathetic it was, and moved on with our lives. As we moved closer to the wedding we were invited to, my husband and I were talking about whether or not we should go, considering the weird interactions. There was one day that a weird interaction happened between the neighbors and myself. There's been so many at this point I don't remember what happened. But I did loudly exclaim to my husband, in my house but my windows were open, that I didn't want to go because these people were nuts and clearly didn't like me. My husband understood. He was a little disappointed, but said that if we ended up getting an invitation he would support my decision. Fast forward a couple of weeks. Their wedding date comes and goes. I let my husband know that we never received an invitation. He ran into the dude out front and congratulated him on the marriage, and the dude exclaimed that he was disappointed that we didn't attend. My husband let him know that we never got an invitation, and the dude says, "That's weird, I know my wife says she put an invitation in your mailbox." The mailboxes are at the end of the driveway next to each other. It would be really hard to miss putting one in there. My husband brought this up to me, and I did let him know that we never got an invitation, and even if we had, I probably would have laughed as I threw it away, because I did not want to go to this wedding after everything that happened. Eventually this blows over, and I think everything is normal. I would run into the husband every once in a while when my husband got home. I sometimes go out to greet him, and I would try to say hi or make small talk, because I knew him and my husband got along. For the record, I never congratulated them on their marriage, because by the time my husband let me know that an invitation had been put in our mailbox, it was clear to me that this woman is being deceitful, and I just don't have time to play stupid games. From that point forward, every time I was in my backyard, she would bang around in her backyard, clearly trying to make a scene, and would loudly slam her back door every time I was outside. There would be weird, passive-aggressive noises. I would hear them talking about me. Just general, passive-aggressive behavior. It annoyed me at first, but again, just like with the stepmother, I chalked it up to immature girls being immature. Fast forward another month or so. I spent all day cleaning my house, getting things reorganized. I mean a true deep clean. I didn't finish until almost 2 a.m. It was a weekend, so I really didn't care, but I did go out and sit on my back patio to do a meditation and decompress a little bit before I went to bed because it was so late. When all of a sudden, from the neighbor's backyard, I hear a woman say, "She's just sitting there." I was, in fact, just sitting there. Again, I don't play stupid games. I was in the middle of a meditation, and I just cleaned my whole house. It was also 2 o'clock in the morning, and I wasn't here for any of the nonsense. So I didn't respond. I continued about my life. A couple of days later, around 6 a.m. Monday morning, I took my dogs outside. Everything was pitch black outside. Sun was still down, when I started hearing rustling from their backyard. I didn't think anything of it first, but my dog alerted on it, which is unusual for her to do for an animal. She usually only does this for humans. I looked at my dogs and, in a normal tone, but loud enough for somebody to hear if they were back there, asked, "What is it? What do you hear?" After which it was a clear sound of somebody shuffling across furniture, almost falling off a chair, and what I'm positive was a back door shutting. Although it was very early, so I don't know for sure if the door shut. It definitely sounded like somebody was crawling over their furniture, and my dog barked once or twice, to let whatever or whoever it was know that she could hear them. That night, when my husband was on his way home, I let him know what our dog heard that morning. When my husband got home, I did go out to meet him, and the neighbor dude was out front. I did not tell him about hearing his wife over the back fence and narrating my life to the neighborhood at 2 a.m., although looking back I should have. But I did let them know I had heard somebody crawling over his patio furniture, and it alerted my dog. The guy basically brushed it off, but did message my husband later that night to let him know that the cameras were not working, but didn't believe somebody was bumming it in his backyard. That means something very different in the UK. About a week after this incident took place, I could hear them talking in their backyard when the neighbor dude flippantly said, "A neighbor is a psycho." I was on my phone with my headphones in, so I doubt they knew I was there. The house on the other side of them is vacant and for sale, so I'm pretty positive they were talking about me, but I could be wrong. I'll admit my petty side came out after this, and one day, while working from home, I did open my windows and blasted Mariah Carey's "Obsessed with Me" on repeat, about 6 or 7 when I knew she was home. I probably aggravated the situation, but I've kept my mouth shut up to this point, so I also purposely had a loud conversation with my mom, breaking everything down to her, where I knew they would hear because this is insane. And yes, I told my mom how painfully insecure this lady is and how sad I feel for her. And there was a weekend I blasted Godsmack while I cleaned my house, with all my windows open, and made sure my music was loud when I stepped outside later that night, causing them to take their company inside. Over the last few weeks, this woman, if you can call her that, has begun doing very weird things. For instance, I was outside one day watching TikToks, and I heard somebody shaking a table trying to make noise. Thought it was odd, but whatever, you do what you want in your backyard. If I'm outside smoking, they will turn their misters on. Again, do what you want, but water makes smoke stick. And recently she started coming outside to spray perfume over my back fence, in a poor attempt to make the outside smell better. In addition, there's a window in my office, spare bedroom, that does face directly into a window of their house. I have hated this since we moved in. But with the previous neighbors, it wasn't an issue. We had always been respectful enough to keep the shades closed enough so that we're not looking into each other's houses. These neighbors have fully opened their blinds every single day, to the point where I'm forced to keep my window shut, otherwise they would be staring directly into my office while I work. Due to the insanity, my husband is putting up privacy fences to line our back patio, yay, so that she can't see us when she looks over. It's been a process. Turns out pouring concrete is a challenge. This last weekend, I was alone out back, and I walked to my back gate to put a lock on it. We usually have one on, but had taken it off to move the privacy fences to the backyard. I heard her letting her dogs out. While I'm fairly tall, I can't see directly into their backyard, not that I would because that's creepy. As I was rounding the corner, I noticed that their pit bull was trying to make it over the back fence into our yard. I saw his paws barely reach the top of the fence. And the woman refused to stop the dog until she heard me walking around and called them back into their house. At this point, I don't know what to do. They have spent the last 4 months talking crap about me, which is fine, I guess. I can't force people to like me. I have tried to be quiet and let it blow over and kept my mouth shut, but I am so frustrated and feel like I can't enjoy the sunshine or my back patio without being watched or listened to. They have made it clear that they think I'm the problem, and any issue that gets brought up, this woman will clearly lie to her husband to get out of any accountability, and has successfully painted me as a crazy lady, which is fine. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. But I have come to the internet for advice. Encouragement? Legal advice? I don't even know. It's exhausting, and I'm stuck living next to them for the foreseeable future, but I don't see any way we can make amends. And no, we have not filed any police reports and don't have cameras. I was trying to ignore the whole thing and maintain the peace on my side, but it doesn't seem to be going away. Hellfreezer's note. My advice here might not be super satisfying, but I think it's the most practical thing to do for the time being. You just keep on keeping on. Just live your life. You want to be outside, meditating, having a cigarette? You do that. You want to go chat on the phone? You go do that outside as well. Let them do whatever nonsense and say whatever nonsense they want to do in their backyard. That's their concern. Maybe pop your earbuds in if you're outside so you don't have to listen to them. And this is a part that's not super satisfying and wouldn't play very well on Reddit, but don't do anything to aggravate them. Don't take any steps like blasting the loud music and such. You don't want to be the antagonizing neighbor. What you want to be the angel in this situation. They've decided you're crazy? Well, okay, let them think you're crazy, but they're the ones who are acting that way. You're just being very normal and peaceful and sensible. The one who, when all is said and done, rises above it all, and there's not a thing they can actually point to that proves you've done anything wrong. It doesn't sound like we're at the point where cameras would be necessary yet, but I would keep that one in reserve in case you do need to just, kind of pop a camera so you're filming your backyard in case there's any more shenanigans going on. But you and your husband are doing the right thing, sticking the privacy fences up, and hopefully that mitigates a lot of the issue in the foreseeable future. I don't see the marriage lasting, to be honest with you. She sounds really insecure. So while you guys might be living there for the foreseeable future, I think there's a divorce in your neighbor's future, so woohoo! Romance is breaking up. I'm an awful person. Anyway, bye. 5. Story time. About 8 months ago, our fantastic neighbor passed away. We had lived next to each other for 20 plus years and were friendly. Recently, her children sold the house, and our new neighbor is just plain rude. So it started a few weeks ago. Our neighbor is 30-something with a man bun, 6'2" and a little heavier set. When he moved in, he started by confronting my 17-year-old sister, who is 5'2", for parking in the street in front of his house, trying to intimidate her. Mind you, it's public street parking, and she didn't block the driveway. For reference, we have 6 people and 4 dogs living in our 5-bedroom house with 6 cars. While we try to keep the vehicles in front of our own house, sometimes it is easier to park a little further down than crossing the street. Fast forward a few days, and he complained about our dogs who go to the bathroom in our backyard at 1 p.m. on my lunch break and bark while they play out back. Not like consistently, but he was in a meeting and how dare we let our dogs outside. For clarity, our town does have a noise ordinance where quiet hours are between 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. There is also an ordinance about dog barking being a nuisance if it's intermittent for half an hour or continuous for 10 plus minutes. Neither stipulation is met. The dogs are well trained and like to play, and they bark when they come in. They may sit for 2 or 3 minutes, but again, nothing excessive. The reason this is likely an issue is he takes his work calls out back in his screen room. He had a confrontation with my brother about a week ago while he was walking the dogs on the sidewalk around the neighborhood, saying that he isn't allowed to walk the dogs past the front of his house on a public sidewalk. My brother dismissed him as he cleans up after the dogs, and it's a public neighborhood. Many families walk their dogs in the area. Recently, we've had a lot of wind, and since our town changed trash collection, we are required to use these 95-gallon trash carts that are top-heavy and blow over if the winds are too strong. In the last 2 months, it has happened probably twice. When we go out, if we see it has been knocked over, we happily clean it up and move past it. Yesterday, the wind knocked it over, and at 8 a.m., I went outside to take the trash out and noticed a lid and bone had fallen out of one of the bags onto the neighbor's driveway. I picked them up and the trash can and put it back against the fence. While I was cleaning it up, the neighbor came out videotaping me cleaning it up, asking, "Is this your trash can?" Well, yes, that is why I'm cleaning it up. We do not live in an HOA. Excellent. The properties are all privately owned. I understand he is likely trying to create a pattern of behavior to file a complaint with the town. But he then spent 3 hours yesterday building a wall of window planter boxes with no trespassing and no littering signs facing our house. We have been receptive to all of his issues thus far, letting the dogs out for less time, taking them for more walks around the neighborhood to burn off energy. But this guy seems to really want to be a jerk. I'm inclined to try and de-escalate, maybe get a gift card, don't do that, to a local diner, and say, "Hey, just wanted to check in. Seems like we got off on the wrong foot. Just wanted to introduce myself and see if we could clear up the obvious sign of tension and maybe work towards being friendly. but not sure that's even a good idea. It's definitely not. He started this problem. We had toyed around with baking a cake. That'd be a waste of a cake. But didn't want him to accuse us of poisoning it. A gift card is simple and could be a nice way to start a dialogue. Anyone have any thoughts? Ways to de-escalate? Is it wrong to knock on his front door? I still don't actually know his name. His interactions have mostly been with my dad, 58, who has been in the hospital. After I initially posted this, the neighbour did take down the signs. We thought his wife had stopped him, but he put them up again yesterday. Due to the insane winds we've been having, his no littering sign and no trespassing sign blew to our property. Creating litter, he would need to trespass to retrieve. Our neighbour, who is a cop, had been looped into the hostilities, and we had to involve him because the bad neighbour accused us of stealing his signs. We have cameras up, so we could prove it was the wind, and we gave his signs to the police to return to him, as we are refraining from interacting with him. The police have cited him for filing a false report, and have warned him that this would be considered harassment. While his wall of planter boxes is still up, no signs have been posted since. Hellfreezer's note. It was a nice, considerate idea to think of getting a gift card, of just, a gesture to kind of make nice and having a little chat to see if you could work out your differences, because there is a time and a situation when that can happen. Sometimes people genuinely do get off on the wrong foot. Nobody's a bad guy, it's just a misunderstanding. Or maybe somebody was having a bad day and they act in a way that's counter to their nature. It can happen. But that's clearly not the case here. What you and your family need to do is just continue about your life. You do you. Take the dogs out when you would normally take the dogs out. If you're not actually blocking his driveway, then park your cars wherever it's acceptable to park your cars. And let him continue to make a fool out of himself. You've got your cameras up, that's good. You can catch any silly behaviour he does in front of your property. He's eventually just gonna dig his own grave. You're clearly not doing anything wrong, so continue to not do anything wrong. I think the law's on your side on this one. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Naughty Neighbours, episode 34. And thank you very much for everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do hit the like button, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Got a delivery while I was recording that last story. I had to stop, go downstairs and grab it, otherwise they would have taken it away because it came through Royal Mail. But I got them. I got them in time. I could tell the guy was about to leave just as I got to the door, but I got the package. Finally pulled the trigger and got around to ordering a proper camera. I got a Canon 700D. I got a good deal on it on eBay. I managed to win an auction. Unfortunately, like a lot of cameras listed on eBay, it doesn't come with a lens, but I have done a little bit of research. I've figured out the kind that I should probably get, at least to start with. And they're not super expensive either, so I'll be watching the eBay auctions like a hawk until I find the lens to go with it. Pleasantly surprised. Not surprised that everything the listing said would be in it is in it, but also, and I hadn't noticed, there's a little SD card, which is good because I would have had to buy one otherwise to get me started. So hopefully, all I need to do is take care of the green screen of it all, and I can get to making more visually interesting videos. So that's one thing I can tick off. I've got the camera listed as working, should be fine. It's even got the little flippy out screen you can flip out and turn around, which was kind of a feature. I thought, okay, I can only go back so far before cameras don't have that. So there was a list of models that met my needs, that had decent video quality, and that was one of them. Just need to do that and figure out like a lighting setup and so on. Fun times ahead for me. It's work, but it's fun work. Anyway, no more business, so let's move on to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, what's the most fun thing you've ever bought from an eBay auction, if that's something you've done? Or any kind of auction, it doesn't have to be eBay. Let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, let's take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. This one comes from Revenge's Ice Cream 333, and it is, what is the next purchase you're planning to make? And today's answer comes from Jessica Fowler, a Japanese ball-jointed doll which I'm planning on making a spacesuit for as a prop for some paintings I have been planning. Well, that was about a year or so ago, so I hope it worked out for you, Jessica, and that you got that doll and you did those paintings. And with that, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.